Hi everyone, welcome to Emma, a true infidelity story. I'm excited to share a new story with you. The first thing you notice when you enter our home is the light. It streams through the large windows, casting a warm golden glow over everything. It's as if the sun itself decided to take up residence, with us bathing our lives in its gentle embrace. I've always loved that about our house, the way it seems to hold the light, much like how it holds our memories. My name is Sophia, and if you were to look at my life from the outside, you'd see what looks like perfection. I work as an occupational therapist, a job that fills me with purpose. Every day I help people reclaim their lives, guiding them through the painstaking process of recovery after injury or illness. There's something deeply satisfying about watching someone regain their independence, their smile returning as they master a task they thought they'd never do again. Sophia, my husband, is an architect. His passion for design is evident in every line. He draws every structure he envisions together. We've crafted a home that's not just a building, but a sanctuary. Our laughter echoes off the walls. Our dreams are woven into the very fabric of our lives here. And then there's Oliver, our golden retriever, whose boundless energy and affection are a constant reminder of the simple joys in life. But as I sit here with a pen in my hand, the weight of a secret presses down on me. It's like a storm cloud gathering on the horizon, one that I've been too blind, or perhaps too scared to see. How did it come to this? How did I, Sophia, the woman who prides herself on her integrity, find herself in a situation that defies all logic and morality? It started subtly, like the first drops of rain before a downpour. There were moments, fleeting at first, where I noticed Sophia's attention seemed elsewhere. His eyes, usually so focused and warm, would drift away during conversations. I chalked it up to stress from work, or perhaps the natural ebb and flow of long-term relationships. But then the signs grew more pronounced. One evening, after a particularly long day, I came home to find Sophia on his phone, his face illuminated by the screen in the dim light of our living room. He was laughing, a sound I cherished, but it wasn't directed at me or something we shared. It was for someone else, someone on the other end of that digital line. That was the first crack in the veneer of our perfect life. I remember the exact moment when suspicion turned into a gnawing certainty. It was a Saturday morning, the kind where the world outside seems to hold its breath, waiting for the day to unfold. I was in the kitchen, the aroma of fresh coffee mingling with the scent of Oliver's cute dog. Food Ka was supposed to be at work, but his car was still in the driveway. Curiosity mixed with a growing unease led me to check his phone, something I had never done before. What I found was a series of messages, not just casual exchanges, but intimate conversations, promises and plans with someone named L. The realization hit me like a physical blow. The air seemed to thicken around me, and the light that once filled our home felt suddenly oppressive. How could this be? How could Sophia, the man I've built a life with, the man who promised to share all his days with me, be leading a double life? The question swirled in my mind, each one more painful than the last. Was it my fault? Had I missed the signs? Or was this always part of who he was, hidden beneath the surface of our seemingly perfect existence? Sitting here now with the pen poised above the paper, I'm about to unravel the threads of this secret. It's not just about Sophia and me. It's about the very foundation of trust and love we've built. How did it come to this? How did I, Sophia, the woman who prides herself on her integrity, end up in a situation that defies all logic and morality? The answer lies in the choices we make, the paths we tread, and the secrets we keep. And as I write, I realize that this story isn't just about betrayal. It's about the journey of self-discovery, about facing the darkest parts of ourselves and others, and about the resilience of the human spirit in the face of life's most profound betrayals. It started on a typical Thursday, a day like any other. Sophia was away on a business trip, leaving me to manage the house and Oliver. The day was uneventful until I received a call from my clinic. They needed me to come in for an emergency session. I rushed out, leaving Oliver in the backyard, not anticipating the turn my life was about to take. The drive to the clinic was a blur, my mind preoccupied with the patient's needs. When I arrived, I was greeted by the familiar scent of antiseptic and the soft hum of medical equipment. The session was intense, requiring all my focus and empathy. By the time I finished, the sun had begun its descent, painting the sky in hues of orange and pink. Exhausted but relieved to have helped someone in need, I returned home expecting the usual calm of our sanctuary. However, upon entering, I found Oliver had escaped into the house, leaving a trail of chaos. His muddy paws had tracked dirt across the living room, and he had managed to knock over a vase. Its remnants scattered like broken promises on the floor. Frustrated, I decided to lock him in the storeroom temporarily, while I cleaned up. But what happened next was something I could never have prepared for. As I was sweeping up the shards, my phone buzzed. It was a message from Sophia. My heart skipped a beat, hoping for some semblance of normalcy. But the message was brief and cold. "I'll be staying another night. Don't wait up." The words felt like a slap, a reminder of the distance growing between us. I continued cleaning the silence of the house, now oppressive, each creak and whisper of the wind outside. Amplifying the emptiness, my thoughts kept circling back to the messages I had seen on his phone. The intimacy with Elle that seemed to mock the love we once shared with Oliver. Safely locked away, I moved to the kitchen, the heart of our home, where we had shared countless meals and laughter. Now it felt like a stage set for a tragedy. I poured myself a glass of wine, the liquid a deep red, mirroring the turmoil within me. Sitting at the kitchen table, I stared at the phone, the device that had become both a window into Sophia's secret life and a barrier between us. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was living in a house of cards, each revelation threatening to bring it all down. The wine did little to soothe my nerves, and as the night deepened, my mind wandered to the storeroom where Oliver was. His usual exuberance was replaced by soft whimpers, a sound that echoed my own heartache. I knew I should let him out, but the thought of facing more chaos, more reminders of the life I thought I had, was overwhelming. Instead, I found myself drawn to Sophia's office, a room I had always respected as its private space. Tonight, however, the boundary felt like a challenge. I opened the door, the familiar scent of his cologne lingering in the air, a ghost of his presence. His desk was neat, almost too neat, as if he had prepared for an inspection. I sat in his chair, the leather cool against my skin, and opened the laptop. The password was the same as always, our anniversary date. A pang of guilt hit me, but it was quickly overshadowed by the need to understand, to find some truth in the sea of lies. The emails were there, more messages from Elle, each one a dagger to my heart, plans for dinners, talks of future dreams that should have been ours. My hands shook as I scrolled through them, the reality of Sophia's betrayal sinking in deeper with each word. I closed the laptop, the screen going dark. Much like the future of our marriage seemed to be. The house felt colder, the walls closing in. I returned to the kitchen, the wine now tasting bitter. The silence was broken by Oliver's persistent scratching at the storeroom door. With a heavy heart, I walked over and opened it. He bounded out, his tail wagging, furiously oblivious to the storm brewing in my life. I knelt down, wrapping my arms around him, seeking comfort in his unconditional love. As I held him, the weight of my secret, the one I had been too scared to confront, pressed down on me. How did it come to this? How did I, Sophia, the woman who prides herself on her integrity, find herself in a situation that defies all logic and morality? The answer lay not just in Sophia's actions, but in my own, the choices we make, the paths we tread, and the secrets we keep. And as I sat there with Oliver, I realized this story wasn't just about betrayal. It was about the journey of self-discovery, about facing the darkest parts of ourselves and others, and about the resilience of the human spirit in the face of life's most profound betrayals. The night stretched on the house silent, except for the occasional sigh from Oliver. I knew sleep would be elusive, my mind too full of questions and pain. But in that moment, with my cute dog by my side, I felt a flicker of resolve. I would face this. I would find my way through this darkness, not just for myself, but for the life we had built together, for the love that once filled these walls. And so as the first light of dawn began to creep through the windows, casting long shadows across the room, I knew this was just the beginning of understanding, of healing, and perhaps of finding a new kind of strength within myself. As I sat there, the weight of my secret, The one I had been too scared to confront pressed down on me. How did it come to this? How did I, Sophia, the woman who prides herself on her integrity, find herself in a situation that defies all logic and morality? With Oliver locked away, I began cleaning, but the silence was too much. I turned on some music, hoping to drown out my thoughts. The soft melodies filled the room, but they couldn't mask the chaos within as I moved around. Accidentally knocked over a bottle of wine which shattered, spilling across the floor. The crimson liquid spread like a stain on our once perfect life. In my haste to clean it up, I slipped, hitting my head on the corner of a shelf dazed. I found myself on the floor, the room spinning. The pain was sharp, a physical echo of the emotional turmoil I was enduring. I lay there for a moment, the cool tiles against my cheek, the scent of wine heavy in the air. My mind was foggy, thoughts swirling like the patterns on the floor. In that disoriented state, I opened the storeroom door to let Oliver out, thinking he could help me up. But instead of helping Oliver, sensing my distress, became overly affectionate, his behavior escalating in a way that was both confusing and alarming. His tail wagged furiously, his body pressed against mine, his tongue licking my face with an intensity that felt almost desperate. In my confusion, my actions were not my own. I found myself engaging with Oliver in a manner that was unthinkable. A moment of insanity driven by my disorientation and the surreal atmosphere of the dimly lit wine-scented room. It was as if the boundaries of reality had blurred, and in that haze I sought comfort in the only way I knew how. Through touch, through the warmth of another living being. The clarity returned like a cold splash of water. I pushed Oliver away, my heart racing, my mind recoiling from what had just transpired. The room seemed to tilt back into focus, the music now sounding, jarring, the wine scent turning sour. I sat up, my head throbbing, my emotions a tangled mess of guilt, confusion and fear. What had I done? How could I have let myself go so far from who I am? The questions hammered at me, each one more condemning than the last. I looked at Oliver, his eyes wide and innocent, and felt a wave of shame wash over me. He was just a cute dog, a creature of pure love and loyalty. And I had, in my moment of weakness, crossed a line that should never have been approached. I stood up, my legs shaky, and walked to the sink to splash cold water on my face. The reflection in the mirror was not the Sophia. I knew it was a woman haunted by betrayal, by her own actions, by the crumbling of her world. I needed to understand, to process, to find some semblance of control. In this chaos I returned to the living room, the music still playing, now a cruel reminder of the life I thought I had. I turned it off, the silence returning, heavy and oppressive, sitting on the couch. I wrapped a blanket around me, seeking some form of comfort in its warmth. Oliver, sensing the shift in my mood, lay down beside me, his head on my lap, his eyes looking up at me with that unconditional love. I stroked his fur, the act soothing both of us, a silent apology for my lapse. The night stretched on each tick of the clock, a reminder of the time slipping away, of the life I was losing. I knew I couldn't stay here in this house, that now felt like a prison of my own making. I needed space, time to think, to heal, to figure out what was next for me, for us. As dawn began to break, casting a soft light through the windows, I made a decision. I would leave not just the house but this situation. I would find a place to stay somewhere, to gather my thoughts, to rebuild myself. I packed a small bag, essentials only, and wrote a note for Sophia. It was brief, to the point, explaining nothing of what had transpired with Oliver, but stating my need for space, for time away. I left it on the kitchen table, where he would see it upon his return with Oliver. By my side, I walked out of the house, the morning air cool against my skin. The world outside seemed unchanged, indifferent to the storm within me. I drove to friend's house, someone I trusted, someone who would understand, without needing the full story. As I drove, the road ahead felt like a metaphor for my life now. Uncertain, daunting, but necessary to travel. The betrayal, the confusion, the moment of insanity, they were all part of this journey, a journey of self-discovery, of facing the darkest parts of myself and others, and about the resilience of the human spirit in the face of life's most profound betrayals. I knew this was just the beginning of understanding, of healing, and perhaps of finding a new kind of strength within myself. But for now I needed to step away to find solitude to reflect on the choices we make, the paths we tread, and the secrets we keep. And as the sun rose higher, casting long shadows across the road, I felt a flicker of hope, a whisper of the resilience I knew I had deep within. The next morning, the reality of what had occurred hit me like a freight train. Guilt, confusion, and a profound sense of betrayal towards Sophia overwhelmed me. I couldn't face him, couldn't even look at Oliver without feeling a wave of nausea. I called in sick, unable to function my mind, replaying the incident over and over. I tried to rationalize to understand how I could have let this happen. Was it the head injury, the isolation, the wine? But no explanation could erase the fact that I had crossed an unimaginable line. How could I ever tell Sophia? The weight of my actions felt like a physical burden. Each step I took through the house seemed to echo with the gravity of my mistake. I wandered aimlessly. The once comforting spaces now felt like a maze of my own, making each turn leading me back to the same inescapable truth. I found myself in the kitchen where the remnants of last night's chaos still lay, scattered, the broken glass, the spilled wine. It all seemed like a metaphor for my life now, shattered, stained, and beyond repair. I cleaned up mechanically, my movements robotic, my mind elsewhere, lost in the labyrinth of my guilt as I scrubbed the floor. I couldn't help but think about Sophia. His face, once so familiar and comforting, now seemed like a distant memory, a photograph faded by time and betrayal. How could I face him after what I had done? The thought of his reaction, the inevitable confrontation, it made my stomach churn. I moved to the living room where the sunlight was now harsh, casting stark shadows across the furniture. It was here, in this room, where I had felt the first pangs of suspicion about Sophia's fidelity. Now it was where I sat, enveloped in a different kind of darkness, one born from my own actions. I picked up my phone, the device that had become both a window into Sophia's secret life, and now a mirror reflecting my own. I scrolled through my contacts, my finger hovering over Sophia's name. I wanted to call him to confess, to end this tormenting silence between us. But fear gripped me, a cold, paralyzing fear of what would come next. Instead, I dialed my friend Sarah. Her voice was a lifeline, a reminder that there was still some semblance of normalcy out there somewhere beyond the walls of this house. "Sophia, are you okay? You sounded off last night." Sa's concern was palpable even through the phone. Need to talk? Sarah, can I come over?" My voice was barely a whisper, the words feeling like they were being dragged from the depths of my soul. "Of course, come over. I'll be here," she replied without hesitation, her tone soothing, a balm to my frayed nerves. I packed a few more things, essentials for a longer stay away from home. Each item I placed in the bag felt like I was packing away pieces of my old life, sealing them into a box that I might never open again. As I drove to Shri, the world outside seemed to blur. The colors muted, the sounds distant. My thoughts were a cacophony of guilt, fear, and a desperate need for absolution. Arriving at Sa's, I was greeted with a hug that felt like an embrace from a past life, one where I was still the Sophia I recognized. Her apartment was a stark contrast to the house I had just left. It was filled with warmth, laughter from a sitcom playing in the background, the smell of coffee brewing. We sat down and I poured out everything, not the details of my indiscretion with Oliver, but the overwhelming sense of betrayal, the confusion, the isolation. Sarah listened, her face a mixture of concern and empathy. "You need time, Sophia, time to heal, to think, to figure out what you want next," she said, her hand squeezing mine in reassurance. I nodded, the tears coming now, not just for Sophia's betrayal, but for my own. I don't know how to move forward from this. How do I face Sophia? How do I face myself? "You start by forgiving yourself," Sarah said softly. "You're human, Sophia. We all make mistakes, especially when we're hurt." Her words were a small comfort, but the path ahead was still shrouded in uncertainty. I knew I had to confront Sophia to tell him about his affair, but the thought of revealing my own lapse was paralyzing. That night, as I lay in Sarah's guest room, the silence was different. Here, it wasn't oppressive like at home. It was a quiet space for reflection. I stared at the ceiling, the shadows dancing with the occasional car light passing by. Outside my mind was a battlefield, each thought a soldier fighting for dominance. How could I ever tell Sophia? The question haunted me, a specter of my own making. But as the first light of dawn crept through the curtains, I felt a resolve, forming not to confess my own sin, but to confront Sophia about his. I needed to reclaim some control, some dignity. In this mess I would tell him about Elle, about the messages, about the betrayal, but my own secret, the one that felt like a dagger in my heart that would remain locked away, at least for now. I needed to heal, to understand before I could even begin to think about sharing that burden. The journey ahead was daunting, but as I watched the sunrise painting the sky in hues of hope, I knew I had to take the first step for myself, for the life I thought I had, and for the future I now had to rebuild. Piece by painful piece, I could hear the key turning in the lock, the familiar sound that used to fill me with warmth, now sent to shiver down my spine. Kai stepped into the house, his face lighting up with joy at seeing me. His smile was genuine, his eyes bright with the excitement of being home. Unaware of the storm inside me, I tried to act normal to mirror his happiness, but every interaction felt like a lie. The guilt was eating me alive, gnawing at my insides with every passing second. We sat down for dinner, the table set with the usual care, but the food tasted like ash in my mouth. The silence between us was thick, filled with unspoken words, and the weight of my confession yet to come. As Sophia talked about his trip, his voice filled with enthusiasm, I could only nod, my mind racing with how to begin. Finally, I couldn't bear it anymore. The words tumbled out, my voice breaking as I told him about the accident, the disorientation, and the unspeakable act that followed. I watched his face, the confusion morphing into shock, then settling into a pain so deep it seemed to age him. In an instant, his fork dropped, clattering against the plate, the sound echoing in the now silent room. Sophia stood abruptly, his chair scraping back, the noise jarring in the quiet. He left the room without a word, and moments later the front door slammed with a finality that echoed through the house. The silence that followed was deafening, filled with the weight of my confession. Would this be the end of us? I sat there, staring at the remnants of our dinner, the food now cold, mirroring the chill that had settled in my heart. The house felt different, the warmth of our home, now replaced by a cold emptiness. I knew I had to give him space to let him process what I had just revealed, but the uncertainty was suffocating. The night stretched on each minute, feeling like an eternity. I wandered through the house, touching the walls, the furniture, as if to remind myself that this was still our home, our sanctuary. But it felt like a mausoleum, a place where our love had died. I found myself in the living room where the light was still streaming through the windows, now casting long shadows across the floor. I sat on the couch, the same place where I had first felt the pangs of suspicion about Sophia's fidelity. Now it was where I sat, enveloped in a different kind of darkness, one born from my own actions. The phone was still in my hand, the device that had become both a window into Sophia's secret life, and now a mirror reflecting my own. I scrolled through my contacts, my finger hovering over Sophia's name. I wanted to call him, to explain, to plead for understanding, but fear gripped me. What if he never came back? What if this was the end? Instead, I called Sarah again, needing her voice, her reassurance. Sophia, how did it go? She asked, her tone gentle, knowing the turmoil I was in. It's bad, Sarah, he left. I managed to say, my voice barely above a whisper. I'm here for you. Sophia, you're not alone in this. She reassured me, her words a small comfort in the vast sea of my despair. I spent the night at SRA's, the guest room, now a refuge from the storm of my life. The silence here was different, not oppressive but comforting, allowing space for reflection. I lay awake, the shadows on the ceiling, shifting with the occasional car light passing by. Outside, my mind was a battlefield, each thought a soldier fighting for dominance. How could I ever tell Sophia? The question haunted me, a specter of my own making. But as the first light of dawn crept through the curtains, I felt a resolve, forming not to confess my own sin, but to confront Sophia about his. I needed to reclaim some control, some dignity. In this mess I would tell him about Elle, about the messages, about the betrayal, but my own secret, the one that felt like a dagger in my heart that would remain locked away. At least for now. I needed to heal to understand, before I could even begin to think about sharing that burden. The journey ahead was daunting, but as I watched the sunrise painting the sky in hues of hope, I knew I had to take the first step for myself, for the life I thought I had, and for the future. I now had to rebuild piece by painful piece. I returned home the next day, the house still echoing with the silence of Sophia's absence. I walked through each room, the memories of our life together, now tinged with sorrow. I knew I had to face him, to talk, to try and salvage what might be left of our relationship. When Sophia finally came back, his face was unreadable, a mask of emotions I couldn't decipher. We sat in the kitchen, the heart of our home, now a stage for our confrontation. "I need to know everything," he said, his voice steady but cold. I took a deep breath, the air feeling thick with tension. I told him about the messages, about Elle, about the nights I spent alone piecing together the puzzle of his betrayal. His face remained impassive, but I could see the storm brewing behind his eyes. "And what about you, Sophia?" he asked, his voice breaking slightly. "What happened while I was gone?" The question hung in the air, heavy with implications. I looked away, unable to meet his gaze. "I made a mistake, Sophia. One I deeply regret," I admitted, my voice barely above a whisper, not daring to delve into specifics. He stood up, pacing the room, his hands running through his hair in frustration. "How do we move forward from this, Sophia? How do we even begin to trust each other again?" I had no answers, only the raw, exposed nerve of our shared pain. "I don't know, Sophia, but I want to try. I want to understand why. And I want us to heal." The conversation stretched into the night, raw and painful, each word a step towards understanding or further into despair. We talked about love, about betrayal, about the choices we make, and the secrets we keep. As the night deepened, we sat in silence, the weight of our confessions hanging between us like a tangible thing. Kai finally spoke, his voice softer. "Now maybe we need time apart, Sophia, time to think, to heal, to figure out if there's still in us to save." I nodded, the tears coming now, not just for Sophia's betrayal, but for the possibility of losing him, of losing us. "I agree," I whispered, the words feeling like a surrender. We agreed to separate, not just physically but emotionally, to give each other space to reflect on our relationship, on our mistakes, on the love that once filled these walls. As I packed a bag to stay with Sarah again, the house felt colder, the walls closing in. I left a note on the kitchen table, a promise to work on myself, to seek understanding, to find a way back to the woman I once was driving. Away, the road ahead felt like a metaphor for my life, now uncertain, daunting but necessary to travel. The betrayal, the confusion, the moment of insanity, they were all part of this journey, a journey of self-discovery, of facing the darkest parts of myself and others, and about the resilience of the human spirit in the face of life's most profound betrayals. I knew this was just the beginning of understanding, of healing, and perhaps of finding a new kind of strength within myself. But for now I needed to step away, to find solitude, to reflect on the choices we make, the paths we tread, and the secrets we keep. And as the sun rose higher, casting mom shadows across the road, I felt a flicker of hope, a whisper of the resilience I knew I had deep within. Days turned into weeks, and Sophia returned, not with anger, but with a quiet resolve. We sought therapy both individually and as a couple. The journey was arduous, filled with tears, anger, and moments of doubt. But through it all, Sophia's commitment to understanding and healing was unwavering. We learned to communicate in ways we never had before, addressing not just the incident, but the underlying issues in our relationship. We talked about our fears, our desires, and the paths that had led us to this point. Each session was like peeling back layers of an onion, revealing more about ourselves and each other. One evening, after a particularly intense session, we sat in the kitchen, the same place where our lives had begun to unravel. The room was quiet, save for the soft hum of the refrigerator. Sophia looked at me, his eyes reflecting a mixture of pain and hope. "I've been thinking," he started, his voice low, "about what we've lost and what we might still find." I nodded, feeling the weight of his words. "I know it's not just about what happened, but why it happened. We've both been lost in our own ways, Sophia reached across the table, his hand finding mine. I want to rebuild, Sophia. Not just our marriage, but our trust, our connection. I've been talking to the therapist about how we can do that, about how I can be better. His words were like a balm to my aching heart, and I've been working on understanding myself, on forgiving myself. I added, squeezing his hand. It's not just about you, Sophia. I need to heal too. The decision to rehome Oliver was one of the hardest we've ever made. His boundless energy and affection had been a constant in our lives, a reminder of simpler times. But we both knew it was necessary for our healing. The day we took him to his new home, my heart felt like it was being torn apart. Sophia held my hand as we watched Oliver play with his new family, his tail wagging, oblivious to the storm he had been at the center of our marriage. Once on the brink, became stronger, built on a foundation of honesty, forgiveness, and a new understanding of each other's vulnerabilities. We started small with daily check-ins, sharing our thoughts and feelings openly, something we had neglected before. We also took up new activities together, like hiking, which became a metaphor for our journey. Each trail we conquered felt like a step towards reclaiming our bond. On one such hike, as we stood atop a hill looking over the vast expanse, Kay turned to me. Do you think we can truly move past this? Or will the shadow of that day always linger? I looked out at the horizon, the sun setting in a blaze of colors. I think I said slowly that the shadow will always be there, but it doesn't have to define us. We've learned to walk in the light, to appreciate the warmth it brings, even if there are moments of darkness. Sophia pulled me close, his arms wrapping around me. I love you, Sophia. I'm sorry for the pain I've caused, and I'm committed to making this work. I love you too, I whispered back, feeling the truth of my words resonate within me. And I'm committed too. We've both made mistakes, but we're here together. Choosing to heal. Therapy continued, and with each session we peeled back more layers, not just of our past, but of our future aspirations. We talked about children, about what kind of parents we wanted to be, about the kind of life we envisioned. These conversations were not just about healing, they were about building something new, something stronger. One night as we lay in bed, the silence was comfortable, filled with the soft sounds of our breathing. Do you remember? Sophia said, his voice a gentle murmur in the dark. How we used to dream about our future here. I turned to face him, the moonlight casting a soft glow on his face. Yes, I remember. And now we're not just dreaming, we're making those dreams real. One step at a time, he smiled, a genuine smile that reached his eyes. I'm looking forward to what comes next, Sophia, with you. And as I lay there, feeling the warmth of his body next to mine, I realized that while the path to recovery was fraught with challenges, it was also filled with moments of profound connection and hope. We were not just surviving, we were learning to thrive again together. Could we truly move past this? Or would the shadow of that day always linger? The answer was unfolding with each passing day. In every shared laugh, every tear shed together, and every step we took forward, our journey was not just about overcoming betrayal, but about rediscovering love, trust, and the resilience of the human spirit. We were crafting a new narrative, one where the light of our home was not just a reflection of the sun, but of the love we were nurturing day by day in the face of life's most profound betrayals. My story ends here. If you feel that this story is meaningful and brings useful lessons, please like and subscribe to the channel to support me. Thanks for listening, and see you in the next videos.